أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين لعنة الدائمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين على أعدائهم أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون صلوات. Women, I'll crave your attention for an extra 5 minutes today because it's Saturday night. And I'd like to acknowledge our young reciters, all three of them, for the efforts that they have made, and their parents for the beautiful renditions, and also prepare them for the days to come. So let us recite a loud salawat for our children and their parents. Secondly, I totally endorse everything that Brother Ahmad mentioned in terms of the importance of this walk. This morning, we had a group of, I think they were Catholics, who had come here. There were about 30, 35 of them. And we were presenting our great faith to them. And one of them asked me a question to say, but how do you fight Islamophobia? And my response to them was, we don't fight Islamophobia. We touch one person at a time. You people are here. Hear us out. We are human beings like you. These are the values of our blessed Prophet, and we would like you to be our ambassadors out there to say that I met a Muslim, I went to a mosque, and this is what I did. This is how we touch one person, change one mind at a time, because we don't have the resources of the institutions where Islamophobia has become an industry. You have think tanks, you have funders, and you have the likes of Fox and others. They all work in tandem to actually create stories, and this is a money-making industry for them. We don't have that money to fight back, and we don't need to fight. All we need to do is ensure that this work that we are doing tomorrow, for example, portrays the somber occasion that we are observing. It shows the value of what we do, and our actions must be such that they're not misinterpreted by the onlookers. Because what we do in our Imam Bargas is one thing. When we portray ourselves outside, and there is a beautiful tradition. I don't know if there is anybody from Hyderabad here. If there are, they will remember that there used to be a particular procession. I don't know whether it still comes out now. But on the day of Ashur, they used to have what they call Chup Tazia, meaning it was a silent walk. There was no chanting, there was no nawa, there was no marsha. It was just a silent, somber walk where people would just stand and observe and see the somberness of the occasion. I think that is what we are trying to portray tomorrow. And inshallah, let us all work together so that we have this walk to actually become a symbol of how serious our mission is and how somber the occasion is, and that this is an occasion of social justice, which was being portrayed in Karbala by Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And truly we are blessed to be part of that movement that continues to stand up to the oppressors and speak for those who are oppressed. Salawat. It so happens that the ayah that I began with And my subject matter today is living a purposeful life, making a contribution to society. And we just heard an appeal and about funding this center and the admin and all the good things that we do. The ayah that I began with points us, which really is the mafhum, which really is the essence of Karbala, that never shall you achieve righteousness unless you give something out of that which you love. That is true giving. In Karbala, as we will go through the narrations, they gave their all. They gave the best thing that they had, their own lives. And in order to reach towards the state of birr, because birr, the ayah says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. The concept of birr is a very interesting concept. Birr is not just righteousness. The closest that one can come to, because English is a very poor language when you try and describe concepts. Arabic is very powerful. That birr is indeed beyond righteousness. The closest that you can come to the word birr is the German Weltanschauung, to say that it is goodness filled with righteousness, and it's a holistic package of doing good for society for a greater cause, and that truly is a meaning of birr. And in these lands that we have made our homes, in these lands where we have our children growing up, and there'll be generations, in order to ensure that these generations are not wiped out in 3 generations, which is what happens in North America generally, I believe that the institution of Azadari is and has played a key role in ensuring that we maintain our faith and our cultural values both, because I do believe that our cultural values, whatever that culture may be, our faith and our cultural values are intertwined, and we actually use our culture as a vessel where we pour our faith in. If we do not have the vessel of culture, we will not have anything to pour in. But if we only have culture, it will only become a cult, because we will not have the essence of the faith. And therefore these institutions, the Jamaats and the organizations as we call them, are extremely important that they are sustained. And inshallah, there is a slide that I will talk about the contribution that we can make. But right now, I'd like to endorse the appeal that is made to say that whatever you are able to do, please open those wallets. And I was going to use this slide, but since it's pertinent, there are 3 kinds of givers in a society. You have the flint, you have the sponge, and you have the honeycomb. With the flint, you try and rub 2 stones together, and maybe there might be a little spark, maybe $1 or 2 somewhere here. It's a little spark. And then there is the sponge, where the more you squeeze, the more sort of liquid comes out. So some people need some cajoling, and that's fine too. And then there are those who like the beehive. The beehive just oozes honey. You don't have to squeeze it, you don't have to strike it, you just go put your hand there. If you can, stay away from the bees and carefully beg, the honey will drop. We hope that there are more in terms of the beehives than the flints in this community, I'm sure. So we hope that we'll be able to fill this particular target that the community has. Salawat. So, Mu'mineen, coming back, living purposefully. And I've taken about 6 minutes and 30 seconds, so I'll add that to my... And it is Saturday night, so I might take a little longer with your permission. Living a purposeful life is really the core of this entire presentation. We're building up to the intentional living, the power of critical thinking, and how do you use time as the best resource in terms of trying to live a purposeful life. And tonight's presentation really is, you may call it the essence and the heart of the entire series. So I crave your attention. After that, obviously, we'll talk about life is a journey, how Islam can be a vehicle, the concept of the society of believers, religious harmony leading to a peace for humanity, and finally the culmination as to what makes the message of Karbala so enduring that we come here night after night. The passions that we have, the emotions that we have about Abu Abdullah inspires to do things which are bigger than ourselves. And inshallah, that is the purpose. So, the first thing and the very core thing that we need to understand is that a purposeful life must be a God-centric life. Allah must be at the center of our lives. He cannot be on the periphery. Allah must be, because when we talk about intentional living, and I take you back to the very first lecture on the second night of Muharram, we said our niyyah is qurbatan ilallah. Niyyah to live is to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore it makes eminent sense that the niyyah is of qurba. And then the second thing that we looked at was the life purpose that we have is His pleasure. Because this is what we do, qurbatan ilallah. The idea is to seek His nearness for His pleasure. And then when we look at it, in Dua Kumail we recite every time, Ya Sari al-Rida. O whose pleasure is quickly achieved. It is so easy to get His pleasure. And we recite this and we understand this. People are very hard to please. There is a Persian proverb or a little anecdote that if you give somebody 10 almonds and 9 almonds are sweet, 1 almond is bitter, they'll come back and say, you gave me those almonds, but 1 almond was bitter. What about the 9 sweet ones? I forgot that. This is human nature. Hazrat Luqman tells his son, let's go for a walk and I want to teach you something. So they go, they have a donkey and they're walking. The two of them are walking and the donkey is walking, and people watch them to say, what kind of fools are these? They have a donkey and they do not ride the donkey. So Hazrat Luqman tells his son, you ride. He said, no, father, you ride. So Hazrat Luqman sits on the donkey, the son is walking. They're saying, what kind of a father is this? He's making the son walk and he's now riding the donkey himself. So then the son sits on the donkey. And the people say, well, what kind of a son is this? What kind of a son is this? He's making his old father walk and he's now riding the donkey. So they decide to both sit on the donkey. And people say, what kind of people are these? That they are putting so much weight on the donkey that they're both riding the donkey. So finally they say, well, let's carry the donkey now. And the people still were not satisfied to say, what kind of people are these? They have a donkey, instead of the donkey carrying them, they are now carrying the donkey. The point I'm trying to make is, you will never please all the people all the time. You may please some people all the time. You may please all the people some of the time, but you will never please all the people all the time. But if we are trying to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is so easy to please. So let us seek the pleasure of Allah and not try and seek the pleasure of people. Yes, we try and be nice, but people will never be pleased. At the same time, if you see that we find out that we are close to death, and who knows who's closer to death and who is not. But at least, you come to an age where you say, now I'm almost in the departure lounge waiting to get on. But suddenly you realize that, did I really live? What did I do? When the life flashes back. And before it flashes back, life, may have a habit of overtaking us. And therefore, when hours slip into days, and the days slip into weeks, and the weeks slip into months, and the months slip into years, then we realize that time has gone by. What have I done? And the Blessed Prophet Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I quote, that people are asleep, upon death they wake up. So, to be cognizant. Now, what is our destination? You can see in Surah Al-Najm, وَأَنَّ إِلَيْهِ رَبُّكَ مُمْتَحَنَّ. Towards God is my limit. This is the zenith of a human being's potential as to where he is going to reach. You know, we talked about the idea of ahsani taqweem the other day. The human being has been created in the best of molds. This is the zenith. The Quran says towards God is thy limit. When God is limitless, what is my station? And we said a couple of days ago that when we look at the lives of the Aimma alayhimus salam and the spirituality that they achieve and the qurba of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they achieve is something that we cannot even fathom, but it is the tears of Karbala that allow us to have a brief moment with Abu Abdullah, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to have that brief moment of spirituality where we can soar and maybe taste that spirituality, that it remains with us. You know, you try and define spirituality, you cannot define it, you cannot get somebody to understand it. You can only give some similes. And you know, you can learn from anyone. And in search for a definition of spirituality, I asked many scholars, many thinkers. And I came across, when I was visiting Ahmedabad in India, I came across a Hindu priest. And I asked him, what is your definition of spirituality? So he looks at me, smiles, and he says, and the conversation was in Gujarati. I won't repeat it in Gujarati. And he says that if you are on the road walking and you see a mother coming with an infant or a baby in a pram, and momentarily your eyes meet that child in the pram, and the child smiles at you. Instinctively, as a human being, you have a connection with that child and you smile back. Instinctively, the child has nothing to gain from you, you have nothing to gain from the child. The child smiled, you smiled back. And he said, imagine the pleasure that you get momentarily with that smile and the smiling back, that elation that you get within, the human spark and the human energy. He said, if you can sustain that feeling for as long as you can, doing whatever you can, be it meditation, be it dua, be it, contemplation, be it ziyarah, wherever you may be, to actually see that you have that level of euphoria and that level of feeling good within you, that is spirituality, that you are somehow being connected, transcendently, to a bigger power. That truly is spirituality. Each one of us experiences spirituality differently. But our relationship with God is the same. Each one of us has a different wavelength, a different way to connect. And the one thing that we as human beings sometimes fall prey to is we become judgmental. To say, well, so and so is doing this. We don't know what his connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may be. I know what mine is, and I pray to Allah that He keeps me there. But I should not be judgmental. Let Allah be the judge. It is not for me to judge. It is for me to judge myself, because remember, whatever we do in life, if I point one finger out there, there are three fingers pointing back at me. And this is a level of spirituality and our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, I come to the core of this presentation. The message of La ilaha illallah. The Blessed Prophet said in the little hillock, saying, Kulu La ilaha illallah tuflihu. Say La ilaha illallah so that you may be delivered, so that you may achieve happiness, so that you may achieve falah. Again, the word falah is very difficult to translate. It's not merely happiness. It is happiness with accomplishment, with fulfillment, and all those good things that come with it. To say that is falah. What a liberating message that we have in our possession when we say the Shahada and we accept, having said that here is an authority and the only authority that I'm going to seek pleasure of. If it is at the displeasure of other human beings, so be it. But my focus, if I'm God-centric, then indeed I will continue to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me that falah. Because I have now said La ilaha illallah. Now if I am not getting falah, Nauzubillah, the words of the Prophet cannot be wrong. So there must be something wrong with my utteration of La ilaha illallah. And what can I do to be a better human being? Salawat. Mu'mineen, let us move forward just a little bit so that we can allow the others who are joining us to have some space. What did that message do, that liberating message do at the time of Jahiliyyah in Arabia at that time? What the Prophet did was that he elevated the concept of taqwa, of God consciousness and God nearness, where there was none. There were pagans worshipping all kinds of idols. The Blessed Prophet gave a simple message saying, say La ilaha illallah, so you may be delivered from all these chains and all these tribalistic things that you have, and brought about the concept of taqwa, of God consciousness. And when we talk about taqwa, there are different definitions given by our scholars. One of the definitions that really struck home with me personally was, sometimes taqwa is seen as fear of Allah. Sometimes it is, given as being obedient to Allah. Some people interpret that in terms of the appearance as to how you look. It's what's inside. One cannot be judgmental. But, there is a way that a mu'min, a muttaqi would behave, would conduct himself, would comport himself. But the best definition that I came across was given by Shaykh Ustad Mutahari. And he said, taqwa is a concept that needs to be understood as giving you immunity from sinning. Taqwa is an immunity from sin. Meaning that your God consciousness is such, we are told that He is closer to you than your jugular vein, that your God consciousness is such that you see Him with you, that you would not even think of disobeying Him. Every time there is an impulse to do something that you are not supposed to do, or to do something which is going to harm someone else, my God consciousness will say, but Allah is watching, I cannot do this. Mawlai Mutikan Imam Ali alayhi salam was once asked, in terms of the masya or disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reply he gave was, he said, do you see that sewer, that stream running with dirty water? He tells the man, would you ever think of drinking from that sewer? He said, no. He said, that is how we feel about the masya or disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our God cognizance. So, he elevated the concept of taqwa, which had no value in the past, and he deflated the values of blood, of tribe, of race, which were very significant at that time. And he brought that value to zero. This was the liberating society of Arabia at that time, where values changed. He tilted the balance in that society. It was not as easy to tilt the balance in the Bedouin Arab society at that time. But you know what it did? It liberated people like Hazrat Bilal. Those of you who may have watched the movie Message, which is an old movie about the Prophet, you could see that scene where Hazrat Bilal was on the floor and his past masters were beating him up. for having said La ilaha illallah. There came a time that he could speak no other word except Ahad. And you could see in that film, it literally jarred you, that every time he was beaten, he said Ahad. He was beaten, he said Ahad. It gave the slave, Bilal, the power to resist his masters, because he said, now that I have said La ilaha illallah, I'm not afraid of these masters. I'm afraid of one and only one, and that is Allah. And he would say Ahad, 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 till the masters got tired of beating him up. This was the way that the message impacted. I will not look at the second story, inshallah, some other time. But the key to a purposeful life has got to be somehow earned. There needs to be some methodology. There need to be some protocols in order to attain that. And I crave your attention that we have been provided with some keys by our scholars, and them taking from the Aimma al-Muslim, as to what are those keys. How do I become more God conscious? It's easy for me to stand here and talk about this for 20 minutes, and we'll all go home and we'll get busy doing whatever we are doing, and next Muharram we'll come back and we'll have another speaker here probably speaking about the same thing. But what is it that we can do? What is it that I can do today when I go home, that I make a promise to myself that I will be a better human being next Muharram? We're all work in progress. None of us are perfect. We're all work in progress. What do I do? So there are three things. And don't be sort of too alarmed by these big sounding words. They're simple. But you have to describe them somehow. So first is, the key is theoethics, which means looking at the name and its meaning in relation to Allah. By name, what we mean is Asma'ul Husna. The 99 names of Allah that we have are 99 keys for us that would open up this path to God consciousness, this path to us becoming God-centric. Theoethics, which is looking at the name and its meaning in relation to Allah. Then you have psychoethics, that assuming that name within our own psychology. That name has got to have some impact. Now I've studied the name, and I'll give you examples. And then the second is that I assume that name within my own psychology, within my own self. And the third one is what we call socioethics, that having done the first and the second, having imbibed that into the psychology, that then pervades in the wider society, which is called socioethics, the actions which manifest themselves in a society as a result of understanding that name. So the name is going to do something to me as a human being. And if that name does the same thing to other human beings, we will come together as an intentional society with a similar mindset, with a similar vision, with a similar goal. And if we do that, then we will be able to progress on that path much faster. So, let's look at some examples of the theory of these several ethics. And again, we're pointed by the Blessed Prophet. Says, "Takhallaku bi akhlaq Allah." Adopt the akhlaq of Allah. This is what we are told by the Prophet. That means that how do we adopt the akhlaq of Allah? That these must reflect in our day-to-day conduct in every aspect of our life for our fellow human beings. So what is this adopting the akhlaq of Allah is truly, in one sentence, what the psychologists talk about psychoethics and theoethics and socioethics and so on and so forth. Well, each name happens to be a dua. And we have books where you take that name so many times for a particular ailment, and we recite that 100 times. We recite that several times. Yes, it is something that is going to focus on. At the same time, if we are to imbibe the meaning of the name in our lives, it gives us far more in terms of its effectivity. So, the first thing is to know His attributes, His sifat, because God can only be understood through His sifat. You cannot understand God, or you cannot define God. You cannot define Allah. As Imam Ali has said, that if you have contained Him in your mind, that's not Allah. He is uncontainable. There is no limit to Him. But you can understand Him through His sifat, through His attributes. The second thing is that we study and analyze His attributes, and then we live them. When reciting any one of His beautiful names, let us try and ponder and apply them to our lives. This is the path to be able to make ourselves God-centric. So let's look at the term Rahman, which is one of His names that we utter so many times in a day when we recite the surahs and the Quran. What is Rahman? You know, there are two terms in Bismillah. Have we ever wondered, why is it Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? Rahman and Rahim. What is the connection? Why are two words being used which seem to have a similar root in Arabic? So what's the difference? Well, Rahman is that His mercy that goes to all creation, nurturing them, protecting them, guiding them, preserving them. Rahman is an attribute, a sifat of Allah, where whether you believe in Him or not, whether you recognize that this is God or not, whether you are a religious person or an atheist, He's going to give you the oxygen to breathe. He's going to give you a risk to partake. He's going to give you a life to live. You don't have to believe in Him to actually benefit. That is His attribute of Rahman. There was a man, an idol worshipper, and he was making a tasbih to say, O Sanam, O Sanam, O Sanam, O Sanam, O Sanam. And by mistake he said, O Samad. And the voice came to say, Labbaik. And the angel says, but he's an idol worshipper. It's by mistake he said Samad instead of Sanam. Sanam is an idol. So he took the name of God, Ya Samad. And the answer came that is the difference between an idol and me. When somebody asks for me, I respond. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is Rahman. So that is one. So for us, if we take the attribute of Rahman into our lives, then giving selflessly becomes easy. Whether somebody agrees with me or not, whether he speaks my language or not, whether he's of the same color as me or not, whether he belongs to the same Jamaat as me or not. If I can be of some service to another human being, I am now imbibing the quality of Rahman in myself, and I become much more worthy of making myself God-centric, because I have now tried to adopt His akhlaq into my lives. Therefore, wherever I am as a human being, I will be of service to others, regardless of what's in it for me. Well, if I help him, I'm going to get more business out of him. That's different. But somebody who's walking, who you do not know, they fall down, an old lady falls down, your fitrah is you'll help her and take her up. But sometimes things change and the fitrah slowly becomes numbed, and you do not realize as to what you could do for the other human being. So this is one way of adopting the akhlaq of Allah in your life, of Rahman. The next one is Rahim. I think I have the wrong image there. It's actually Rahim, which is the merciful. The other one was the beneficent. The difference between Rahman and Rahim, read that as Rahim and not Rahman. The difference between Rahman and Rahim is that Rahim is that faculty, that attribute, that sifat of Allah, which He has reserved specially for those who believe in Him. The mercy that He has. So Rahman is for everyone. Rahim is for those who believe in Him, for those who acknowledge Him, and He has a special mercy. Therefore, when we are in a society, while we are out there to help, be of service to everybody, we would obviously have a special relation to those who believe with us. Our co-religious who have the same religion, the same faith, the same aqidah as we do, that we have a special grace for them. And this is the way that we try and imbibe the idea of Rahman and Rahim in our lives, and we become more God conscious. The other one is the patient, Sabur. This is another attribute. And we could go through the 99 names and find something that we can pick and we can learn. And there are books available that you can go through and try and imbibe. I'm just giving you a couple of examples. That the concept of sabr, he is patient. He is very patient with us, with what we do, with all the blessings that he gives us and what we do. If he was not patient, then that stick would come down on us so fast we wouldn't even know. He is patient. He gives us time. In the same way, how do we imbibe that? Well, Hazrat Ayyub, and the story of Hazrat Ayyub in the Quran is well known, that he had everything that you'd ask for. And suddenly he lost it all. For 70 years, he had everything that he would want. Family, home, wealth, and then all was taken from him. So much so that he was riddled with a disease that people would not even go near him except his own wife. This is the story of Hazrat Ayyub. When he was asked about his state, this is the answer he gives. Look at the sabr of Hazrat Ayyub. He said, I lived for 70 years in prosperity, so why shouldn't I be patient for the sake of Allah for another 70 years? I lived nicely for 70. Now he's given me this. I should be patient and live that for another 70. So the idea of imbibing the quality of patience in Allah Hamas Sabirin, that Allah is with the patient. So this is again another way of imbibing the Asma'ul Husna into our lives. Al-Adl, for example. Adl, the concept of justice is to put everything in its rightful place. The opposite of Adl is Zulm. The opposite of Adl is Zulm. What is Zulm? Zulm is to put something where it does not belong. If I were to wear this cap on my foot, that is a Zulm on this cap, because the cap is to be worn on the head and not on the foot. I have displaced it. That is the theory of it. So Adl is to put everything in its rightful place. Now, sometimes we question because we confuse Adl with equality. And there is a long discussion that one could go through, the equality between men and women, or the equity between men and women. There are many things, it is not my subject. But just to give you a pointer, to say that it would not be Adl if a large oak tree was given the same roots as that of a small plant or a small sapling. The oak tree requires bigger roots for its survival. The sapling requires smaller roots. So that is Adl. It is not injustice that one has big roots and the other one has small roots. There are many examples to say Allah talks in terms of equity. Who is deserving, who needs what, and they are given based on those societal conditions, and that is Adl. But for us, the idea is to ensure that we also follow the principle of Adl and justice, and so much so that no one has been able to demonstrate, as I gave an example a few days ago, as to the desirability of justice than Imam Ali alayhi salam. His justice is renowned, case after case that you see. So much so that he stood up when his name was taken with great respect to say, you are not fit to be a judge because you have now ruled in my favor before even you heard the case. This is a fine line of justice. So when we stand up on that basis, that even if it's going to be not beneficial to me to stand up, and by keeping quiet I could benefit, if I stand up with that sense of justice, then I've imbibed the attribute of justice. The last one is Al-Halim, and I want you to focus on that and take just a few more minutes in determining the attribute of Al-Halim, which is a forbearer. What does it mean in some depth? It says, one who witnesses the disobedience of the disobedient, one who sees the violation of his command, his amr, yet anger does not arouse him. He is not one who is prompted to take swift revenge, even though he has unlimited power to do so. He sees us disobeying him, day in, day out. But it is this quality of Halim that tells him or tells us that he will not give you a swift retribution. He will give you another opportunity. He'll give you a chance. He will not get angry. He will not take swift revenge. Though he has unlimited power to do what he wants with us. And yet, there is that level of forbearance and that patience. This is his virtue and his sifat of Al-Halim. So how can he apply, as an example, this idea of forbearance into our lives? We talk about psychoethics. How do I put this into my life? Well, life is composed of different relations. You have got siblings, you have, children. You know what that is, Mildale? Most critical? Mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relations. Critical. The idea of people living in a society and they come across, these relationships can get strained. Relationships can get very serious. And even more critical sometimes, member of the same Jamaat. These tensions can become quite critical, and it really absorbs a lot of our energy, and relations get broken. Well, if we were to look at the idea of forbearance, to say if Allah is Halim, can I actually imbibe that spirit of that forbearance in me and develop that quality to say that I will retain that relationship at whatever cost? The idea of Sile Raham and Qat-e Raham is something that is so much emphasized. Because there are many things that ruin some relationships. Allah doesn't cut off his relationship with us if we misbehave or if we do not do what we are supposed to do. So if he continues to give, if he continues to forgive, if he continues to give us risk, if he continues to take care of us, and if he continues to keep this bond alive, if we were to put that into our lives with psychoethics, to say regardless of whatever, we will not break our relationship. We will not do Qat-e Raham. The Sile Raham must continue, that we must not break relationship with our near and the dear ones. That we cannot cut relationship with those that we have lived with for years and years. We are a family. As a society, we are a family. And Qat-e Raham is something that is frowned upon. Indeed, Imam Muhammad Baqir al-Islam is quoted and narrated on the authority of the Blessed Prophet that maintain relations with your relatives even if they are residing at a distance of 1 year's travel. This is because Sile Raham is one of the commands which Allah has made as part of religion. It's so very important. In this day and age, well, I don't need anybody. I've got my job, I've got my assets, I've got my, I don't know what you call your pension here, we call it 401k, whatever it is. Well, I'm set for life. What do I need other people for? What do I need my brother for? He fought with me 5 years ago. I don't need him, I'll go my way. Well, this is Qat-e Raham. This is frowned upon. That we should not break those relationships. And there are rules of Sharia where there are so many days and so on and so forth. I don't want to go into the fiqh of it. But we have those rights and responsibilities amongst each other. So the rights of God's creatures, and I alluded to this earlier on, what you have uquq al-ibad, which are the rights of Allah upon us, are as important as the rights of God, hukukullah. So hukukul ibad are the rights of the creatures of Allah upon us, and hukukullah are the rights of Allah upon us. They are both equally important. One cannot negate one for the other. I cannot just be in the mosque and do my own thing and come and pray and contemplate and move on. A teacher visits his student who had studied with him for many years, and he goes to the village where the student now lives after many years. And he does not find the student in the village that he would live, so he asks to say, where is my student? He was from this village. He was supposed to come back and he was supposed to be, serving you villagers. He said, no, he's a very pious man. He stays aloof in that one corner. We send him food. He doesn't interact with us. He is in his meditation and his prayers all the time, and he's such a pious man. He's a great man. We admire him very much. So the teacher says, okay, I will go and visit him. And he goes and visits the student and says, whatever you learned was for the benefit of society. I did not expect you to sit in this little place and just contemplate and continue with your education. Your education was supposed to be for the benefit of the village that you came from. And he gives him a beautiful example. And it's so very pertinent here in this cold weather. He said, if you want to keep warm, there are two ways of doing it. One is that you wear a big, thick coat and keep warm. Hopefully you provided one for me for tomorrow, inshallah. One big coat and you can keep warm yourself. And that's one way of doing it, keeping warm in the winter. The other one is to light a fire. Light a fire so that everybody around that fire is going to be warm. That is your job as my student, to go and serve humanity. You cannot just be I, me, and myself, and that I have a tea party where there is nobody else. The idea is hukukul ibad, the rights of the creatures of Allah. Biharul Anwar, the Blessed Prophet, is quoted to say to strive for the fulfillment of a Muslim's need is better than circumambulating around the Kaaba 70 times. From the mouth of the Blessed Prophet. Yes, the tawaf is so very inspiring. The umrah that we make are so very inspiring. We circumambulate, we make the tawaf. The Blessed Prophet says that it is 70 times better. I'm not saying we don't go for umrah. I'm not saying, no, please do not misunderstand me. But when we are given these examples, we are told as to how important hukukul ibad are, how important it is to serve our fellow beings. Because on the day of judgment, this is Hadith Qudsi, man would be asked, and women, when I say men, I obviously mean women too. O son of Adam, I was hungry and you did not feed me. And we'll answer to say, how could I feed thee? You're the Lord of the worlds. And the answer will be that so and so in your village was hungry. So and so in your village was hungry. You did not go and feed him. Had you fed him, then you would have got reward from me. Same thing will be asked. O son of Adam, I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. And the same response to say, well, how can I give you drink? You are the Lord of the worlds. Same thing that you, in your village, in your town, in your place, there was somebody who was thirsty. So and so was thirsty, you did not give him water. And if you had given him, then you would have had the reward from me. And we move on to say, I became sick and you did not visit me. Same thing to say, how can I, visit you? Well, you did not visit somebody in your village. So this is the question of hukukul ibad. And just to, make this a little light, because some presentations tend to be a little heavy, I seek your forgiveness, but it would not be doing service to this podium if we did not discuss some of these concepts. But here is a man who's fallen into a pit. And now look at the conversation as to how today's modern, socially connected Facebook world with 1,000 friends and so on and so forth deals with this man who's in a pit. we have what you call an analysis paralysis in our land here, in North America in particular. So this man is in a pit, an optimist passes by, and he says, you know what, think brighter, things could have been even worse, you would have been in a bigger pit, and goes away. A pessimist comes and says, things will get even worse, and goes away. A philosopher comes and says, you only think you are in a pit, and goes away. A self-pitying person says, you've not seen anything until you've seen my pit, and goes away. The news reporter asks for an exclusive story. A politician promised to do something about getting you out of the pit, after the elections, of course. A mathematician calculates as to how he fell into the pit. A scientist calculates the force necessary to get him out of the pit. A geologist told him to appreciate the rock strata. The city inspector asked him if he had permission to fall into the pit. An educationalist gave him a lecture on the elementary principles of the pit. Everybody is giving everybody advice. They're not solving his problem. He wants to get out of that pit. He wants to get out of that hole. What will you do? If you understood the idea of hukukul ibad, you will take him by the hand, lift him out of the pit because you are a caring person, and realize that he needs most now is to get out of the pit. Many times we are into the situation where we overanalyze. Trying to do something good, we overanalyze and end up doing very little. So hukukul ibad means being empathetic. Hukukul ibad means being understanding of somebody else's plight or being sensitive. When they talk about empathy, they say you need to walk in somebody else's shoes, for a mile to realize what they are feeling. So if you walked in somebody else's shoes for a mile, what do you get? You're a mile away and you have their shoes. No. You understand where that particular heel is pinching, what is happening as to what he is feeling. That is the meaning of empathy. So, let me end this on this note, which is so very pertinent to say this is the definition of a Shia by Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. A man comes to visit Imam alayhi salam, pays his salutations, and he says, I come from a place where we have your Shia who live there, and they are all sending you salams, Yabna Rasulullah. So Imam says, in the place where you're coming from, do the rich visit the indigent when they fall ill? He said, no, not really. Do the rich seek to know the condition of those who are poor? She said, Yabna Rasulullah, you are asking for things that we hardly ever do. Do the affluent ones help out the poor and the needy? He said, not really, not very often. So he says, you speak finally of the attributes which are very rare amongst our people. The man answers. Imam says, how then do these people consider themselves to be our Shia? The lesson of hukukul ibad from Aimma alayhim as-salam. So as we were talking, I wanted to also bring in as to what can we do to contribute to our organizations. I'll quickly go through this. The essence of you being a member of any organization, this one for example, it could be any, that you care about the well-being of the community and humanity, you believe in the cause of the organization and its value, and you volunteer with the purpose to serve our faith in our community, and above all to serve for the pleasure of Allah. So each one of us can offer something. What can we give? Diversity of skills, talents, experience, expertise that we have amongst the Mu'mineen here is, unfathomable. What can we do to give our intellectual capital? What can we do to give our social capital? To provide an element of passion and enthusiasm for the community. This is how we are going to nurture those organizations where these children who are sitting here on this first Shahzah will be the next leaders. We need to nurture them so that they take the baton and we are able to pass the baton on. The progress of a society, Mu'mineen, is that in a society where there are more people who are ready to give and less people who are ready to take is a society that progresses. A society where there are more people who want to take and less people who want to give, there is always tension because the resources are scarce. This is how the world works. So if we have a society where there are more givers than takers, then we are able to progress. And this was the flint, the sponge, and the honeycomb that I alluded to. So, Mu'mineen, when we talk about Karbala, Karbala was a lesson in giving. Karbala was a lesson in sacrifice. Karbala was a lesson in forbearance. Karbala was a lesson of forgiveness. We heard about the plight of Hazrat Hur and how he comes to Imam and the way that Imam forgives him. These are the traits. So if we come here to commemorate Karbala, and if we are going to do that walk tomorrow where we can show the somber event that we are commemorating, then we must truly imbibe that ourselves. So I say that let us not move with Hussein in history. The issue is not to cry much, although crying has its meaning, but the issue really is to move with Imam Hussein al-Islam in the present, in activism, and in change, which is what he set out to be. When he set out from Medina, he said, I am going away out of Medina for the Islah of the Ummah of my grandfather. This was his mission that Mu'mineen we need to keep alive. Salawat. Well, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He is able to give us those resources and have the patience to be able to continue with this mission, so we raise a generation of Hussainis. I can quote you many instances where people have moved away from their own home places, gone elsewhere, tried to enact 3 generations. All that remains is the Julus of Ashura. If you Google a term called Hosay Festival, Hosay, I invite you to look at it. Hosay Festival is a West Indian festival which has got dancing and singing and nauzubillah, everything else in it. This festival was actually started by Shias who had migrated to the Caribbean 3 or 4 generations ago from Bihar, and they used to have these ceremonies of Ashura. All that has remained is a remnants of that Julus, which has now turned into a carnival, because they forgot the essence of what Karbala was. One ritual remained. So if we focus just on the ritual, then indeed we would be losing. Well, today we remember the mothers of Karbala, in particular one mother who gave her all. I just want to read a couple of lines of poetry to get us into a frame of mind, because sometimes these poets can say things that we cannot verbalize. It's talking about the day of Ashur, as to when the day of Ashur was setting in. And the poet says, when the moon cried as she left the skies, when the sky wept as the day was approaching, when the sun rose in agony, when the earth trembled in fear, when the river Furat broke out in tears, O mothers of Karbala, Bibi Zainab, Farwa, Layla, Rabab, they withstood the harassment, the torture, the disrespect, but without their strength, their courage, their bravery, the true message of Islam would have been no more. This is a tribute that we pay to the mothers of Karbala. The day was already very hot. The battle had begun, and one by one Hussein's companions went to the battlefield and gave their lives. Since dawn, Mu'mineen, Bibi Zainab was watching the bodies being brought back to the tent one by one. At one point in time, she remembers the words of her husband. about the sacrifice of her sons On and Muhammad. She calls upon the two sons and says, "Oh my sons, what are you waiting for? Why have you not been to the battlefield yet? Go and fight the enemies of Islam." And the boys plead to say, "But we have tried, but we have not had permission from our uncle." Bibi Zainab goes to Imam Hussain alayhi salam and pleads. And finally, Mu'mineen, the two young sons of Bibi Zainab go into the battlefield. I have no eloquence to recite. I have no eloquence to recite the Maktal, as it were. Suffice it to say that for how long could these two young boys continue to fight? Mu'mineen, finally Imam sees them fall. And the rest has been narrated so many times. Azadan Hussain Imam par Karbala mein sainkड़ों मुसीबतें पड़ी, और इस बावजूद सब्र और तहम्मुल से हजरत मुस्तरिब हो गए, आंखों से आंसू आ गए। और जब 7वीं को मोमिनीन पानी बंद हुआ, बच्चों का प्यास का गलबा तारी हुआ, और बच्चे, नन्हे बच्चे हाथ में खाली कूजेल हुए, अल अतश करके जा रहे थे मोमिनीन। एक और मरहला इमाम के सामने आता है, जब बीबी ज़ैनब इमाम की खिदमत में आती है और दरियाफ्त किया, भाई क्या हमारी कुर्बानी कबूल नहीं फरमाओगे? मोमिनीन, ज़ैनब कितनी कुर्बानियां देगी, ज़ैनब कितनी लाशें देखेगी? इमाम ने कहा, शायद अब्दुल्ला ने इजाजत न दी हो। ज़ैनब ने फरमाया कि उन्हीं ने तो हुक्म किया था, उन्हीं ने मोहम्मद और मोहम्मद को भेजा। रिवायत में है कि इमाम ने बच्चों से कहा, मोमिनीन सुनिएगा, दिल थाम के सुनिएगा, बच्चों से कहा कि तुम पर जिहाद वाजिब नहीं, तुम पर जिहाद वाजिब नहीं। ज़ैनब के लालों ने फरमाया कि हम पे जिहाद वाजिब ना हो तो न सही, सच्चाई सब पे वाजिब है। मोमिनीन, ज़ैनब के लालों ने जवाब दिया, और बीबी ज़ैनब बच्चों को भेजने की तैयारी करती हैं। और मोहम्मद मैदान में जाते हैं, मैदान में जाने के लिए तैयार होते हैं। मीर अनीस के कुछ कलाम सुन लीजिए मोमिनीन, कि आदा को मेरे खून की तासीर दिखाना। बीबी ज़ैनब कहती है अपने बेटों से कि आदा को मेरे खून की तासीर दिखाना, अजलाल हसने शौकत शब्बीर दिखाना, अरे तन तन के दुल्ला की तस्वीर दिखाना, खंदक की लड़ाई की तरह जंग को ले लो। ऐ बच्चों, असदुल्लाह के हो, जान से खेलो, तेगों से दसो, बर्छियों को सामने ले लो, कूफा को तहतम कर दो और शाम को भी ले लो। इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन। मोमिनीन, ज़ैनब के चांद निकलते हैं। उमर इब्न साद ने दूर से देखा कि क्या बहन की ये मोहब्बत के भाई पे ये बच्चे अपने बेटे को कुर्बान कर रहे हैं। मोमिनीन, दो फिक्र और मोमिनीन बस, और मजलिस तमाम फौज यजीद ने देखा कि हुसैन ने खैमों को बच्चे से निकल के कमसीन बच्चे, इतने कमसीन कि ज़ैनब जो तलवार बांधी थी वो जमीन में खींच जाती थी। शायद खैमे के दरवाजे के पीछे ज़ैनब अपनी कुर्बानी को देख रही है। अरे बच्चों ने मैदान की तरफ कूच की, हुसैन ने नजर की, पूछा कहाँ जा रहे हो? कहाँ मौला? आपके दुश्मन से लड़ने के लिए जा रहे हैं। आज अली का बेटा कितना मजबूर है मोमिनीन, के कमसीन बच्चों के दिल, कमसीन बच्चे अपनी जान देने के लिए तैयार। बस बच्चे कहाँ तक लड़ते। एक मरतबा मोहम्मद ने भाई को गिरते हुए देखा और कहा कि मैं तुम्हारे पीछे आ रहा हूँ। मोमिनीन, जब भी खैमों में लाशें आती थी तो बीबियाँ बाहर निकलती थी। बीबी ज़ैनब उन्हें संभालती थी। مگر جب انہوں محمد کی لاش جب واپس آتی ہے تو زینب کہیں نظر نہیں آتی. شاید زینب نے یہ کہا ہو کہ جنہوں میں اللہ کی راہ میں دے دیا وہ واپس نہیں لیتے. انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون. ماتم حسین.